What's good, NBA family, and welcome back to another episode. As always, I'm your host, John. Very happy to be here. Today is Friday, January 26th, and here with us today to discuss all this action from NBA Week 14 is a very good friend of mine. He's a writer for Sports Illustrated. He's the host of the Red Diamond Report podcast. He's none other than Wilton Jackson II. My dog, how you doing?
I am doing good, John. I'm glad to be here. I know we've been playing tag trying to make this happen, man, but I'm just glad to be here. And it's another Friday to talk basketball, man.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. We are very, very happy to have you here. And for the family out there, before we even get into anything, I'll have all of Wilton's work linked in the description down below. You guys go get at him, man. He's avid NBA guy. He's a reporter, man. He do a little bit of everything. Model. He be in the gym. He do a little bit of everything, man. So make sure you go check him out. And for us over here, man, you know what the deal is. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comment section down below what y'all want. But let's go ahead and get straight into it, man. We like to start off with news around the league on our shows here. And we had a lot of news this week, to be honest. So we'll have a couple things to talk about. But I feel like one of the most recent ones that we've seen was the Terry Rozier trade. Terry Rozier got traded from the Charlotte Hornets to the Miami Heat for Kyle Lowry and a 2027 first round pick. My brother, since you are the guest, I do want to give you the floor first. Get your first thoughts on that trade. And I know the Heat just did play yesterday, so I don't know if you got a chance to watch that. But talk to me how you feel about that.
I like the trade for the Heat. Obviously we know what Terry Rozier can do. Scary Terry, as most of us know him, like the work and his production of what he was able to do in Charlotte. Like, I mean, the guy can flat out ball. He can shoot. He can do everything you need him to do. And you place a dynamic player like Terry Rozier already into a format with Miami. Obviously, with a Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, players along that nature, you only expect the team to get better. But so far, like any other team, when you put a new piece in a team, it takes time to adjust. And so right now, we're not necessarily seeing exactly what Terry Rozier is gonna be for this team yet. I mean, obviously he had a slow start in his first game, but obviously I don't expect to see that. And again, this is Miami. This is one of those teams that we know. How many times have we seen Miami go through these mid-season lows? Like they're just like napping in South Beach, like they're just chilling through the months of like February and March. But then come playoff time, come April, I mean, it's a different Miami team. That Miami culture that we've all grown to see, the elevation of Jimmy Butler and what he's done through the years in terms of Miami and what he's done to elevate that team during postseason. And honestly, that's what it's really most about. I'm not saying that, I'm going to discredit and just forget what the regular season means and what Miami does in the regular season, but because clearly what you get from that is motivation and you build on momentum from the regular season to do well in the postseason. But for Miami, a team that made it, obviously most people didn't think, a lot of us didn't think Miami would be competing in the finals last year. But this is a team that can show you, that has shown us that they can do that. And I think Terry Rozier is the next piece to that puzzle that could potentially help them in this year's postseason run.
Absolutely, man. Now you talk about how the Heat just like turn it up come playoffs, and that's that I feel like that's some veteran teams and some veteran players they're able to do that, right? Like we look at players like Jimmy, we look at players like LeBron, and I'm not saying that they like cruise through the regular season, but they just don't take it as serious, and then they turn it up to a whole nother level come playoffs. So yeah, I'm right there with you as far as that, and then like the whole Terry Rozier thing. I think he's a great addition to them. I'm not gonna lie, I think he's a great addition. He's been quietly balling on the Hornets, putting 23 points per game, 45% from the field, and 35% from the three-point line. And you talked about the Heat culture, and I think this is gonna be one of those things where it's like iron sharpens iron. Like Terry Rozier, he was solid, and he started to come up when he was in Boston, and then he went to Charlotte. And then when he went to Charlotte, I feel like it all kind of came crashing down because there is no iron sharpens iron there. He was just hooping. He was hooping with kids at that point. We know the Charlotte Hornets, all the situation that they got going on the court, off the court. So at that point, like it was no different than a really good basketball player being at 24-hour fitness. But now he's going to a team that has real structure, real organization. And that's why I think it's going to be an iron sharpens iron situation with that Heat culture. He's going to fit in like basketball wise, he's a good catch and shoot shooter. He can create his own offense, so he'll be able to a lot of times, late in games, Miami Heat offense Loki stalls out. He'll be able to give him some quality big time minutes, big time buckets, take over in stretches. He can really fill any hole, not any hole, a lot of holes for this team. I'd say you can put him off the bench, and you can have more of a punching score off the bench, or you can put him in that backcourt next to Tyler Hero, and that would be an insanely good backcourt scoring. They both Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier could both easily get buckets. But my only problem with this is giving up that first round pick, because so like we've talked about all the good, but here's my issue. It's like, okay, you gave up that first round pick. If a player like Donovan Mitchell becomes available down the road, or just a bigger fish, a bigger star becomes available down the road, you've kind of already tied your hands up. And don't get me wrong, I think Terry Rozier improves this team, but I don't think it improves this team to where they're ready to compete. And I mean, you tell me what you think, but I agree that I didn't think that they were going to make it to the finals last year, but I won't put my money that they'll make it this year again, though.
Yeah, as they currently stand right now, no, I wouldn't necessarily say that I would put them to make the finals. But again, what we've seen through the years is just a different Jimmy Butler, and for whatever reason, that layer of elevation between him and obviously Bam Adebayo, like they found a way to make it happen. And so when you think about it, you just kind of mentioned the idea of like, yes, they give away that first round pick, but honestly, it's like the main guy that they wanted, they didn't get this past offseason, obviously, in Damian Lillard. So depending on who comes in, I'm not really sure if I'm Pat Riley, do I punch somebody away to get another star? Or I guess I should say this. Am I as worried right now about getting that next premier player with some of the pieces, or the pieces that I currently have right now? Do we, like you mentioned also still though, does Terry Rozier take this team over the hump? If they would have had Damian Lillard, definitely much more so a championship contender right off the back. But now I think that with the players that they have, and obviously great players, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, you have an arsenal of players that can score, that can actually help this team elevate throughout the playoffs. Terry Rozier just adds to that. But now you're talking about some of the other teams in the East. You still have a Milwaukee to deal with. You still have a Boston to deal with. You still have a Philadelphia Sixers team that's looking good, that's still trying to get over that hump. That's not going to be any easy matchup. So in a sense, I agree with the fact that, yes, you gave up the first round pick, but is it anybody out there right now currently that's a prominent player that you're going to essentially maybe have to get rid of Jimmy Butler or Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero at this point?
Counterpoint to that really quick, because you talked about who they'll have to get through, and there was one common thing I noticed for all three teams that you mentioned. You mentioned the Celtics, who as of late they've gone big, and Kristaps Porzingis has been really getting in the paint, scoring. Milwaukee Bucks, we know Giannis, we know Brook Lopez, they dominate the paint. Right. 76ers, Joel Embiid putting up an ridiculous season as a big. My question to you is, like, if they have championship aspirations, which they clearly do by giving up that first round pick, like, are you even contending though? Because you, like, Bam Adebayo is a good big, but Bam Adebayo is a small big in today's league, and we've seen this multiple times. I look back to the 2020 championship when he went up against Anthony Davis, right? I think players like Anthony Davis, players like Joel Embiid, players like Giannis. I wouldn't put Kristaps Porzingis in that category just yet, but I'm just saying, like, those guys are those are the elite of the elite bigs, and two of those guys that I mentioned in Giannis and Joel Embiid, they're in the East, so the Heat are going to have to get through them, and I just think that they're still small. So yeah, you give up this first round pick, you bring in a scoring punch for your backcourt, but in my opinion, the biggest issue is you haven't took care of that front court issue where you're just small comparatively to the teams that they would need to get through.
Absolutely. And you bring up a valid point. That's true. But how many times have we seen it really, really matter when it comes to the postseason? Yeah. Like when you start talking about, okay, this is the same Miami team that had to go through a gauntlet last year, by the way, to get to the NBA Finals, which goes to that point of what I was saying, like nobody expected them to get there. We're talking about a Milwaukee. We're talking about, teams like, of that caliber that they had to go through. So to be honest, I'm not as worried about that right now. I'm not saying it's not an important factor, because it is. Like, you talk about a good example is that a good example of that. Think about the Warriors and how they still are under this more of that small ball mindset, and obviously trying to figure out how to, make up for ways in terms of getting, like, say for example, Kuminga more playing time and things like that, because they thought that, say for example, James Wiseman was going to be somewhat of that guy at one point in time. Now they're still lacking a big, but when you look at Miami, Bam Adebayo, I mean, essentially that's their biggest big, and he's not your technical true big, but at the same time, in this current space of where Miami is and what we've seen them be able to do over the years, I would still bet my money in that regard to say that this is still a team as they're currently assembled that could potentially compete for a championship. Now, I'm not saying they'll get there, but I'm saying I think they still have the pieces to do it.
I think moral of the story is here. We could never count Miami out. We could just never
Exactly.
count Miami out. And then before we get off this, move on to the next news. Do you think Kyle Lowry is going to stay on the Charlotte Hornets? They said they have no plans on buying him out. But do you want to see him more on the contender, or do you want to just see him go end his career in Charlotte?
Honestly, when I think of Kyle Lowry, I always think about like the way that Toronto Raptors team, that championship team was formed, and how he was able to help them win that championship. Honestly, I wouldn't want to see my guy stay in Charlotte. No disrespect to the Hornets, but it's like that's you. It's like you just got put in purgatory.
Yeah.
Like it's like you go there. It's like, man, I'm gonna end my career in Charlotte. Charlotte's not a bad city at all, by the way. But just the franchise where it is now, changes in leadership and management over the last year, that's just not the place you want to end your career at all. So I'm hoping that they find a new home to get him somewhere else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm right there with you, my brother. But let's keep it pushing. Let's get to the next news that's been broken out around the league. That is the surprising firing of the Milwaukee Bucks head coach. The Milwaukee Bucks fired Adrian Griffin, and honestly, like immediately, low key, like in the next 2 days, turn around and hire Doc Rivers, which makes me feel a little suspicious that something was going on behind closed doors. But again, I do want to give you the floor first. Give me your thoughts on this situation here.
John, when I think about this, it's one of those situations where, like, you ever been in a situation in life where you had a good friend or somebody who you thought was a good friend, and it's like, man, you feel like you're able to trust this person, and you're kind of getting some insight and advice and things like that, and all while you're doing that, it's like at one point in time you kind of start to hear some rumblings of some of the things that you only told that person. And then all of a sudden, the things that you were worried about, maybe, say, for example, losing a job or losing a position, or, somebody that could maybe come back to like bite you in the back, that person comes back and does that. Now, granted, we don't know all the details to this situation, but looking at it, just looking at it from a bird's eye view, it's like, man, Doc Rivers, they brought him in to, I guess, not necessarily facilitate the team, but kind of overlook the team in an advisory role of some sort. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we're getting rid of an Adrian Griffin, who, oh, by the way, the day he was fired, third place in the Eastern Conference, 30 or more wins. I mean, it's like, dude, like, usually when you hear about coaches getting fired, the record is reversed. It's like 13-30, but it's you and granted, yes, it's a first year coach, but this tells me more than anything, and I think we all knew this from the start based off some other moves that have happened. You think about slots with Milwaukee before Adrian Griffin coming in, is that this is Giannis' team. And so what Milwaukee is truly, truly, truly trying to do is to make sure Giannis stays in Milwaukee, and they will do anything to make sure that he stays in Milwaukee. And so now they're essentially betting all their chips on Doc Rivers to bring them a championship. Now, granted, like I said, like I said a few minutes ago, in just the idea of we've seen Doc Rivers. Well, we know that Doc Rivers can win a championship. We won one in Boston, but at the same time, over the last several years, we've seen him struggle to get over the hump in terms of winning championships. So maybe things will be different, but I wasn't the biggest fan. And that's no discredit to Doc Rivers, because I think he's defined himself as one of the elite coaches, or one of the championship caliber coaches in the NBA. I just think about the way he came into this position. I'm just not necessarily the biggest supporter of.
Yeah, nah, it looks so grimy. It looks
Yeah,
so grimy from the outside, brother. It like I love that analogy that you brought in because it's like they brought in Doc Rivers to counsel, and then all of a sudden now he's the new head coach, and Adrian Griffin gets fired. Man, that's crazy. And that's also another point. It's like I don't think this is basketball related. You talked about the fact that at the time when he got fired, they were in the third seed. Right now they're sitting in the second seed, and I mean the only basketball related wise way I could see this happening is because of the defensive drop off. They went
right,
from
for
fourth.
sure.
They went from fourth in league to 21st. But the issue is you got to remember you traded away Drew Holiday, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and you brought in Dame, who is great on offense. I'm not knocking Dame, but he's not nearly half the defender is that Drew is in the perimeter. Also, it's like they're and I'm a Lakers fan. So this is coming with no hate, right? But like they're running out there with Malik Beasley and Dame in the backcourt, when it's like that's not going to stop anybody on defense. So that's
I'm not scared of them as if I'm an offensive threat.
I'm attacking them. That's who I'm going at all game.
Right.
And so it's to me, it's like, what do you expect? So I do think that it was a little bit of a cop out move to blame Adrian Griffin. Now, granted, on the flip side, like I commend the Bucks for doing everything that they can to keep Giannis, because that's what you're supposed to do. Giannis is a generational player. Do what you can to keep him. But on the other hand, what I also add to that is I think that Giannis. I'm not saying, and I'm not. I don't want to start a rumor, but I'm not saying that Giannis is like, "Hey, get him fired." But I think that Giannis was like, "Okay, I'm okay with it." Like there's no way they don't run this by Giannis prior to it happening. And if that's really his guy, no way he lets it happen. If that's really his guy, he's like, "Nah, we gonna make this work. We'll figure it out." But if it's not, Giannis okays it.
I mean, but think about the example of you saw the same clip that I saw him drawing up a play on a board and during the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like you think about that. I'm kind of like you. Did he necessarily let it come out of his mouth per se and say, like, you know what, it's time for Adrian Griffin to go? I don't necessarily maybe think he said it exactly like that, but he probably gave some hints, like, went to the manager, the owner of the team, like, I'm just not really feeling the
Mm-hmm.
direction of where we are right now. I don't know what we should exactly do per se.
Mm-hmm.
But I would even think to suggest that maybe he went about it in an indirect way. But I will say this: one of the most direct ways that you can see that he was not happy with Adrian Griffin was when we saw the clip of him drawing that play in the middle of a game.
Yeah, absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
That is ridiculous, especially like when that's like the coach's entire role. Like that, like that's what you're there to do. So yeah, I'm right there with you. And I mean, you brought up a great point of like how the Bucks are just trying to secure Giannis, right? Because I feel like if Giannis loses again after this one seed losing to the A seed last season, after like and having a first year head coach, like they don't
And
want
who is that AC that they lost to?
the Miami Heat. Wilton on point with it. Wilton on point. Hey, damn right. That's why we said never count out the Miami Heat, man. That's right. But I mean, look, the Bucks, they're putting all their chips in, man. All I'm saying is that if this doesn't work, I mean, you might still lose Giannis if this doesn't work, because at this point now you look like a little bit of a shady organization. And so if this doesn't work, man, it's really it's really all chips in the table here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's almost like you go back to square one because
Hmm.
what happens when, okay, maybe they don't get to the NBA finals, maybe they don't get past the second round? Does he begin spreading rumors or starting talking about on social media that, or we're not even gonna say that. He's talking to a reporter because Giannis has his moments where he's transparent
Hmm.
and he may start saying, like, hey, we need to get better, or something is just not right. And at this point, it's like you have when you think about this, Dame, you have Giannis and Dame are two of the greatest scorers in the NBA. Obviously they are missing that defensive piece and Drew Holiday being gone, and I get it, but you have to think as the owner of this team and the coach and Adrian Griffin, you already knew that this was going to be a liability. You knew that. So, but you were hoping that, okay, we were going to make up for it offensively, and that if our offense, basically, if we can outscore everybody that we face, we're going to have, essentially, that means we have to have a great scoring night, shooting night every single night, or if not, we're probably going to lose. If we're giving up 120, 25 points a game or 120 plus points a game, that means we have to average at least 130. That means, again, every night has to be a good shooting night. So, Giannis, you can't have an off night. Dame, you can't have an off night. The supporting cast, none of you guys can have an off night. It has to be perfect. So in my eyes, that again, if it doesn't work right now, you're pretty much back to square one.
Man, oh man, this is a big move, man. This was a big move, and we're gonna see if it pays off, man. Because I'm not big on like saying that coaches are bad coaches or good coaches, because it's so hard, like being on the outside and not being in there. Like there's so many circumstances that could be going on that could change, how a coach coaches, or like what they're able to do, what they're not able to do,
Right.
what the people at the top are telling them to do. Because like, as we know, we were in Vegas together this summer, for summer league. We learned a lot about, the ins and outs of the NBA, and we learned that, like, yo, if somebody's getting paid a lot more money and than somebody else, even if the other player that's getting paid less is better than them, and they should be out there, the owners and the GMs are going to say, hey, coach, I don't care what you game planning, you better play that guy that I just paid. So
Exactly.
it's tough to say that, but with that being said, I will say that Doc Rivers does not have the greatest game 7 record, but
No.
we will see. Hopefully the Bucks don't have to go to a game 7, but let's go ahead and keep it pushing, my brother. Last news that I want to get to here is the NBA All-Star Weekend. As we know, that is coming up February 18th. That is All-Star Game, and they just revealed the starting 5 for both the West and the East. For the East, they have Dame, Halliburton, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Joel Embiid. For the West, they have SGA, Luka, LeBron, KD, and Jokic. My question to you, brother, is there any disagreements? Like, would you have gone anywhere else, or is that a team you would have picked too?
Now I'm not gonna lie. So when I look at the East, Giannis, obviously I'm okay with. Joel Embiid, I'm okay with. Uh Jason Tatum as a starter, I'm okay with. Then you look at Tyrese Halliburton and Dame Lillard. I'm okay
Ooh,
with. Oh, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the
talk to
thing.
me. Talk to me.
It's so hard, so hard to not argue that Jalen Brunson earned a spot as a starter. Like, I mean, it's hard because it's like, yeah, we know Julius Randle, we know what he's gonna do. We know what OJ Anunoby, brings to them, but it's just like, man, like when I think of what Jalen Brunson has done to that team, like at first
Crazy.
we look at him as like, oh, this is a guy who's shifty, he can knock down the mid range, he's crafty and get into the basket. No, this dude is a bona fide star at this
Star.
point. Like if he doesn't have the impact that he's had this season and even toward the end of last season, even in the playoffs, this is not the same New York Knicks team. Why do we know that? Because we know Julius Randle's not doing that. He's not making that big of. He's not making the major impact. Say that Jalen Brunson is bringing. So if I had to take somebody out in this particular case, I think I could have potentially left Tyrese Halliburton off as a starter.
Damn.
I think I keep Dame Lillard as a starter, and I bring Tyrese Halliburton as a player who is an all-star, but maybe not a starter.
Damn, man. Okay, so here's where I'm at with it, because I love the Jalen Brunson nod, and I ain't gonna lie, like I really went back and forth between Brunson and Tyrese Maxey. I'm gonna be honest, right? Because and here's why. And here's why I want to give Tyrese Maxey his credit, is because like he's putting up career highs numbers across the board. Like on literally every single category, he's putting up career high numbers. He's got a lot aggressive, getting to the free throw line, but also like I feel like we need to reward him for the jump that he took. Is in the sense of like, do you remember in the offseason the whole James Harden saga was going on?
Absolutely.
And with James
Absolutely.
and with James Harden being there, that changes literally everything for Tyrese Maxey. If James Harden is there, Tyrese Maxey is now a spot-up shooter who's just going to stand in the corner for the Joel Embiid and James Harden pick and rolls. If James Harden is not there, Tyrese Maxey is the ball handler on these Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey pick and rolls. So the roles are two completely different roles. And like coming into this training camp, he still didn't even know what his role was going to be. I heard a podcast where he was talking about, I think it was with JJ Redick, I believe. He was talking about how he was like, He was like, honestly, I'm ready for whatever. If I just got to play catch and shoot off James Harden and Joel Embiid, I'm ready for it. If I got to be more on ball and be that guy, I'm ready for it. And he's been there. So I really was going back and forth between Brunson and Maxey. And then I was talking to one of my last couple of guests that I have. Shout out the homie Jason Gray. He actually was there with us in Vegas. Actually, the homie Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he brought up a great point, and he was talking about how Maxey is doing all this, but Maxey's not getting 1A attention. Joel Embiid is getting all that 1A attention, and Maxey. Now, I'm not saying they're leaving him open, but he's not getting the focal of the defense. Jalen Brunson is a 6'2" guard who's been getting the focal of the defense and still putting up crazy numbers, still putting up career high numbers. We thought he put up career high number last year. He put up even better than that. So I gotta be honest. I'm the type of dude. I like to stand on business, but when I'm wrong, I need to be honest that I'm wrong. So I'll definitely put Brunson in there over Maxey. But what I won't do is take Halliburton out. So I'm taking Dame out. I'm taking Dame out. So I'm taking Dame. I'm putting Brunson, Halliburton, and I think JT, Giannis, and Joel is like there's really no question about it. I don't think anyone else should go in that front court, but. That's where I'm at with it, brother. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, like I said, I respect it. I just knew they would come down to either Halliburton or Dame of who we would have to replace if that would have been the case for a space for Jalen Brunson.
Man, Brunson gets disrespect. Last year he didn't even make the All-Star team, which is insane. Right. But what about the West, brother? Do you have any disagreements with the West, or are you all in alignment? It's SGA, Luka, LeBron, KD, Jokic.
Yeah, like so automatically who stood out that I knew would be there, obviously SGA. He's having an incredible year. I mean, you talk about I was on a podcast earlier today, Pelicans podcast, and I was saying if there's ever a player, if I had a group of young players that I had to like mold and help them to understand the game, I would probably let them watch SGA for sure. I'm okay with SGA. I'm okay with Luka. I'm okay with KD. I'm also okay with Jokic. And I'm okay with James, but it's just like what's an all-star game without Steph Curry as a starter? But it's like honestly though, when you look at it, when we really look at like specifically this season, and you talk about really like bona fide stars who are like literally changing the game, getting the headlines, kind of like what you said, Jason said about Tyrese Maxey. Like, obviously, everybody knows Steph Curry. We know he's transformed NBA for better or for worse for some people, depending on who you're talking to. But the work that Shea is doing, like, dude,
crazy.
I mean, it's insane.
Insane.
So it's like you can't really take him out to give the nod to Curry. Luka Doncic, I mean,
you can't take him out.
No. So then you look at Kevin Durant.
No.
Then it's like, okay, then you got obviously LeBron James and Nikola Jokic. So maybe LeBron James over Steph Curry. I don't think so.
See, now I'm gonna be honest here, okay? All bias aside, because I am a Lakers fan. I'm a big LeBron guy, or I ain't gonna lie. Like, and I got to give a little bit of context. So I used to be a big Kobe guy. He's the reason I even got into hoops. But man, yeah, shout out Kobe forever. But as I've gotten older and I watched LeBron play, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna put my bias aside and realize that nobody's ever done it at the level he's done it, at the longevity he's done it, at the way he impacts the game on multiple levels, the way he's changed the game, like all this. And after the 2020 championship, I'm not gonna lie, he became my GOAT. Like when I took everything into account, right? Like not my favorite player. My favorite player is Kobe, but I'm putting bias aside. I'm looking at strictly basketball, and I think and I think it's LeBron James. But out of all these guys, like how you said, there's no way I'm taking SGA out. There's no way I'm taking Luka out. There's no way I'm taking KD out. And Jokic, just how could you do that? You can't do that. The only player I could potentially think about taking out, and I'm telling you this as a Lakers fan, as a LeBron guy, I'm telling you, LeBron is my GOAT. I could potentially see him not being there only because, like, by process of elimination, because there's no way you're taking SGA out because of the way he's been playing. And the thing I like to talk about with SGA is like, yeah, we are in a 3-point shooting league. Do we realize that this man takes 3 3-pointers per game? Like, what are you you're telling me this guy's a 6'6" guard taking 3 3-pointers a game?
Yeah.
What? That means he's in attack mode all game long.
Yep.
What? So yeah, I'm right there with you for that. My only issue is like, man, you take LeBron out the All-Star game starters, man, Adam Silver gonna lose millions of dollars.
Oh yeah,
That's my
well,
issue.
that's the business angle, which is very important, by the way. But and just from a basketball angle, it's just like I just don't think any of us real basketball enthusiasts could really see, not yet anyway, where LeBron James is not gonna be a starter. And maybe if he was lower, like much like very statistically lower in terms of his points or production or what have you. But we're not seeing that. Like we're still seeing a very dominant LeBron James.
Absolutely.
So it's just like it's hard to make a case for Steph being in the starting lineup. But I'll say this, and this is kind of I guess not abbreviation, but this is kind of above All-Star and looking into the second part of the season, because we all know the Warriors already have their issues too. But usually when you give a certain edge to Steph, it kind of changes him. So if there was ever a time the Warriors needed an edge, and especially think about, they were coming off that loss last night to Sacramento, but it's just like, if there was ever a time that he needed an edge to continue to help elevate the Warriors to get them, whatever this new trajectory and image of what they're going to look like going forward, specifically in the second half of the season, this might be that edge.
Man, no, absolutely. Great players, they feel themselves by what the media is saying, but the world is saying. So hopefully that that feels Steph, and let's see if the Warriors can turn around for the second half of the season. But all right, my brother, let's get to the who's most likely to here. I got some who's most likely to questions here for you. And the first one I'll kick it off with is this year, who's most likely to win most improved?
So, thinking about this, a couple names come to mind. You're talking about obviously Tyrese Maxey. You consider Tyrese Halliburton, Paulo Banchero. I've actually liked his emergence this year. You could almost see it coming last year. Alperen Sengun, Scotty Barnes. But honestly, right now, I think hands down for me, most improved for me is going to be Tyrese Maxey. And for reasons of many of which you just listed. If Harden's still on that team, he doesn't have the same role that he has. But this year, he's really taken that step that I think all of us knew that he had. He just wasn't able to do it because he was in the shadows of James Harden. Creating his own shot, knocking down the shots, being a facilitator, getting his teammates involved. This is what we knew that he had. He just wasn't able to do that because Harden was in that space. Now we're seeing that. And more than anything, I think if he wins this award, and granted these awards obviously are based off the season, if he continues to elevate and continues to be a very significant part in the Sixers continuing to win and define their season heading into the playoffs, I think he wins this award.
Man, see, I think this award's always tricky because sometimes it's like, I remember like when John Morant was up for it, and like they were saying like, dude, this guy's like an MVP candidate. Like why would we give him like most improved? So this award is always tricky. I do love the Tyrese Maxey nod. I had him at first, but then like after looking at the numbers, and then after also I fell into that in the mindset of like, at this point, like he surpassed this award. Like I think he's close. He's not nearly in the MVP race, but like he's closer to the MVP race than he is the MPI race. And at this point in my mind, so who I went with for me is actually Kobe White. I mean, from the Chicago Bulls, went from 9 points to 18 points per game, 2 assists to 5 assists per game, shooting career highs from the field and the 3-point line. He's a top 5 rebounding guard in this league. And he used to be just a shooter. He used to be just a spot-up shooter. Now he is in constantly attack mode. He still has the ability to knock it down from deep. And it's dangerous when you guard players like that, because if you get too close, they're going to use their speed and burn right by you. If you give them too much room and sag off, hand down, man down, that's a knockdown shot right there.
Right.
So it's tough, man. And the biggest reason I'll give it to him is because I feel like the Bulls are so reluctant to move off Zach LaVine because, they want to make sure they have a future. But it's like he's making them feel better about that. He's making them feel like, all right, cool. We got this 23-year-old and Kobe. He took off once Zach LaVine ball dominance like kind of like left. And let's see what he can turn into. So, honestly, I'm going to go with the nod of Kobe White, even though the Lakers just beat the Bulls yesterday.
Kobe White was in my second half of my top 10 for most improved. He was actually at number 6.
Number 6. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And so your final verdict, you're going with Tyrese Maxey?
Yep.
I like
Tyrese
that.
Maxey for me.
All right, bet. All right, brother. What about this one? Which team is most likely to disappear come playoffs?
So at first I thought this was a little hard, but then I said to myself, it's not as hard as you think. And even with the hype, because this particular team, before I even name them, they had a similar trajectory last year, and then they did disappear in my eyes per se. But it was somewhat kind of expected. So I kind of broke it down to two conferences. So
Mhm.
when I think about this, one of the teams that I feel like would disappear the quickest from the East will be the Cavaliers as it stands right now.
Okay.
I love Donovan Mitchell. I love what he's been able to do, but as we know, sometimes even to his days in Utah, he can become obsolete in some times where he needs to step up. Obviously, Darius Garland's been injured; he's going to come back eventually. But at the end of the day, that Cleveland team, if they're on, they're on. But
Mhm.
that's in the season. In the
Mhm.
playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised if they took another step to an early exit per se. Also another team that I considered, but it could be different this year now that they have OG is the Knicks because we've seen them have not the way that they've wanted to have per se in the postseason. But with OG there, I think it's a little different as well too. But really for me, I think the one team that really just I feel like that could still disappear, honestly, because there wasn't like major changes that made me feel like Cleveland could really be that team to come out of the East, it would be the Cavaliers.
Cavaliers. Okay. I like that. That's actually a really good pick. I'm not gonna lie. Like once I think about it, it's a really good pick. But I'm gonna go with a team that I already know people that are listening at home are gonna probably be like, "What in the world are you talking about?" But remember, guys, playoff basketball and regular season basketball is two totally different things. The game is played differently. It's officiated differently. It's coached differently. It's two different things. Okay. So here's who I got for a team I think is going to disappear. It's actually the number one seed right now in the West, and that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. And
That was my West team, but go ahead.
and here's why. Here's why. Look, man. Right now they're playing with this twin tower lineup of Rudy and Cat. And it's working in the regular season. It is doing their thing. Anthony Edwards just took off. He took a leap. But my biggest concern is right now, throughout the regular season, they're playing one way, which is that Twin Towers, two big lineup.
Yep.
What's going to happen in the playoffs when Rudy Gobert gets played off the court like how he has in every single postseason he has been in? Okay, like it is not like, oh wow, like John's such a smart mind. Like, no. This is common knowledge. Okay. We have seen him get played off the court time and time again because what does it come down to? In the playoffs, that it all comes down to matchups and switches. Okay. So
Yep.
once you get switch on Rudy Gobert, Island, watch out, Island, I'm going to work, Island work. And at some point, Chris Finch, I believe that's the Timberwolves head coach. Chris
Yep.
Finch is going to have to make a decision. And what's his decision going to be? Okay, let's take the liability off the court. Okay, cool. Let's take Rudy off the court. So now what happens? Cat has to slide to that 4. I mean, Cat has to slide to that 5, and he's comfortable. He's comfortably playing in that 4 position right now. He likes to be in the perimeter. He's not going to be able to be in the perimeter because he's going to have to go inside.
Yep.
So it's like you're quite literally changing the entire way that you are playing. So the way that you got this first seed is by
The
catching
Twin
teams by
Towers.
by
Yep.
catching team by surprise with this Twin Towers lineup. Now, come playoffs, you're gonna have to play totally different. I'm not putting my money on that.
Yeah, no, and you shouldn't. And like that's why so many of you even listen to other podcasts, NBA shows. Like, yes, I think we all love and respect that Minnesota is winning because this is a team that has kind of been, subpar, flying on the radar. What is it gonna look like? Is Cat gonna be the guy? Is Anthony Edwards gonna rise to this player that we know that he can be? And right now, they like you said, they look really, really great. But like you said, we've also seen where Rudy Gobert again off of a switch, and he has to come out to the perimeter to potentially guard someone off of a pick and roll. Oh, it's a disaster. Like that
Disaster.
backside defense is a disaster. So if that happens and they're playing teams that likely will probably game plan that way, this could be another early exit for Minnesota. But I'll say this too. Not only Minnesota, but you could even make a case for different reasons when I say these couple of teams. And some people might be mad about this. Uh, OKC is so young. They are so young.
Mhm.
And it's like, I like SGA. I like Chet. I like J Dub. I like Dort. I like that. I like what they have going. I even like their coach. But it's just like, I don't know.
That
You start
whistle.
talking about, think about the teams that currently sit in like the seventh, eighth, ninth, and tenth spot, those play-in spots that they could potentially have to see in those first round matchups. If I'm not mistaken, what the Lakers are somewhere in there too?
Yeah, the Lakers are right now currently sitting at 9th seed.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
like, imagine, if they get one of those final spots for, a playoff spot after the play in, this could be a matchup that OKC has to deal with.
absolutely. And one thing I will say, and I do love that OKC nod, is that whistles are different. And like earlier, we were talking about SGA not shooting many 3-pointers, and like, yeah, he doesn't shoot many 3-pointers, but he also relies on the whistle a lot. And that whistle is going to be a little bit different come playoffs. So I'm right there with you. I do think that's actually a really good nod. I ain't gonna lie, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
And
But
here's another one, but this is again, this one, and I hope this one doesn't happen,
mhm,
but it's strictly based off health, and it's the Clippers. I mean, you're
mm,
now, we're now starting to see them grow in their confidence, their
they look good.
chemistry. Like they do, they look really good, and when they're clicking, they are unstoppable. But fingers crossed, nothing happens to Paul George. Fingers crossed, nothing happens to Kawhi. And fingers crossed that James Harden is still able to be the player where he's not required to be the star player.
Mhm.
He's able to find his role within those two, and they all working simultaneously together, not having to be the star. But if anything happens in terms of health wise for them going forward, I mean, we could see
It's
a
tough.
typical Clippers departure.
Man, oh man, I'm even as a Lakers fan, I've been enjoying watching the Clippers play because it's fun. They got 4 Hall of Famers out there. But all right, my brother, let's go ahead and keep it pushing. Let's get to the last segment of the show here, and that is the winners and losers of the week. As the guest, I want you to have the floor. You let me know who's your winner of the week or loser. You can go whichever one you want first.
So when I think of a winner this week, I mean, I think one of the games that I really watched like really really closely was really last night in Sacramento versus Golden State.
Mhm.
And for everybody that always says, me myself included, in saying that Sacramento still is not the best defensive team, they're improved a little bit, obviously from last year than what they are. Um, they're improved more so this year from last year. Um, for them to get that win against Golden State, I thought it was big. I like the fact that they got that win. I think also too, a team that's still constantly on the rise for me as a winner would be New Orleans, the Pelicans, a team that doesn't necessarily get as much shine as they do. They set a franchise record, 150 points against the Jazz. And Jazz is one of those teams that if you don't really watch a lot of basketball outside of the traditional teams, you might not be paying attention to the Jazz like that. But the Pelicans, like, again, we're finally starting to see health and continuity come together with them, with Brandon Ingram. We're seeing, CJ McCollum come together. We're seeing Zion Williamson, be who he needs to be. We just need that to be more consistently and not every 2 or 3 games, and then he reverts back to, hey, I'm out of sync, or I'm not playing to my best ability. So I think between those two, the Kings and the Pelicans, for me, I would say we're a big winner this week.
Okay. All right. So for my winner, I'm going with somebody who made history. They made history this week, my brother. And you know what? We were, full transparency for the family out there listening. Me and Wilton, we were supposed to record last week, but we couldn't make it happen, so we recorded this week. But you
Yeah.
know what? I'm happy that we recorded this week, because if we wouldn't have recorded this week, I wouldn't have had this winner. But Joel Embiid,
Yep.
Monday, January 22nd, we talking about 70 points, 18 rebounds, 5 of 6, 60% from the field, 50% from the 3-point line. 70. And you know what I like most? Like he was playing Wimby, right? He was playing Wimby in the Spurs.
Yeah.
and Wemby's like supposed to be this next big thing, and he probably will be or whatnot. He's look good, but he's like a big man. Joel Embiid wanted to stamp it early, like, bro, I'm putting 70 on your dome early. Like, never forget this. Like, I don't care how good you get, never forget that you can't mess with me. So I love it. Joel Embiid is my winner of the week by far. I love that move.
Yeah, and like I said, it was no disrespect to Joel Embiid's performance because I think it was definitely worth noting. Anytime you score over 50,
That's
like
crazy.
that's notable. But I think for me, anytime I think about Joel Embiid, the Sixers, and I think it's probably because I'm hard on the Sixers at this point. It's like I care what the Sixers do in the regular season, but I'm ready for them to take that next step in the postseason, and that's
Real.
my verdict on the Sixers.
That's real. That's real. All right, brother. And who is your loser of the week?
Um, my loser of the week.
If you need
Ooh,
some time to think on it, you want me to go first on mine?
yeah, go first on yours.
Okay, I actually got the Toronto Raptors, brother, and here's why. They're right now they're on a 3-game losing streak, and the reason why they're the loser of the week is because they're similar to the Lakers, right? To where like they need to get every single win, like every win matters. You cannot be punting game, you cannot be taking games off, and you need to be beating teams that you're better than. Last game they lost to the Grizzlies. They should have beat them. They got a Grizzlies without Ja, without Bane, without all these Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, all these great players. They got smacked by the Knicks. Like, I mean, smacked by the Knicks. And mind you, like, this is right after the trade. I'm pretty sure this is like one of the first few games after that trade between the Raptors and the Knicks. It's like, man, you want to show them like, all right, no, we won that trade. We got the better hand of that. But nope, the Knicks smacked them. And then prior to that, they lost to the Bulls, which they should have beat. So that right there to me is 3 teams that you should have easily beat to help your record, and they didn't. So to me, loser of the week for me is the Raptors.
Okay, and I can see that. I think now considering, I think my loser for the week was going to come out of the West. I think it's going to be the Mavericks. I was just looking because I remember them losing a couple of games and thinking of the Mavericks. They're 8th in the West right now. They lost their last 3. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. I mean, granted, they've obviously had some issues and things of that nature. So I'm interested to see how they're going to bounce back, coming forward.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, man, I think it's a good place for us to go ahead and wrap it up here, man. For the family out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this great episode. It was a jam-packed episode. We got into a whole lot of news, got into some NBA who's most likely to, and then we wrapped up with our winners and losers of the week. But Wilton, I do want to give you the floor. You have any last things you want to say before we skedaddle out of here?
Man, John, like, no, this was great, man. Honestly, like I said, I'm just really excited for the next half of the season and what's to happen because there's just so much exciting basketball still left to play. So many teams. I mean, like right now, you when I think of like the West and where it is, it's really upside down. Like all the teams that we thought or that we've grown traditionally in seeing to be the front runners, the leaders, like they're kind of in that bottom tier right now. So I mean, anytime you have the Timberwolves, the Thunder over the defending champion Nuggets,
That's crazy.
that's a head scratcher. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not something we thought we would probably say when the season started. And so I'm interested to see how that continues to unfold. I'm also interested to see, and I kind of alluded to this, what this Clippers team is going to do as we get past the NBA trade deadline on February 8th, and how they continue to gel. And then also, we're finally starting to see what we expected to see with the Phoenix Suns, with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. They're looking great. Obviously still some kinks to work out and things of that nature. Some things still kind of scare me in terms of like the bench and what that would look like in terms of going into a postseason series. But I'm interested to see what the Suns are going to look like. Again, the Pelicans, you still have the Kings. So I'm really interested to see, will the West as it stands now, which again, I like to say is flipped upside down. Like, will it stay that way, or will we see some of the more long-standing traditional teams rise up over the second half of the season?
Man, you heard it here first, man. I like that. That's a great way to end the show out. And for the family out there, man, make sure you stay up to date with everything that Wilton's got going on. I'm gonna link everything in the description down below. He's got a whole bunch of great sports outlets, man. Make sure you go check them out. And for us, you know what we do, man. Always bringing you great NBA content, man. 2 episodes per week. Always hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and comment down below to tell me, what teams you want me to get into, which I want to talk about, man. But For now, we out of here, y'all. Clutch Talk out.